We're here this for a meeting of July 23rd, 2024 of the DuPage County Zoning Board of Appeals. I'll call the meeting to order, indicating that all members are present, with Mr. Moran being present by Zoom. Do I have any public comment unrelated to the petition? None? And I presume there's no one in the audience that wishes to make public comment unrelated to the zoning case here. Okay. There are no minutes to approve. So I'll call our zoning case. This is petition 24053 X site, which is a request for rezoning from R2 to B2 General Business District. Then a conditional use for a planned development with a self-storage facility, daycare center, drive-through coffee shop, with the following exceptions: to increase FAR from permitted 0.25 to approximately 0.66. This is a site almost 4 3/4 acres. Lyle Township, and the matter was published in the Daily Herald on July 8, 2024. I have no comments or objections from the various departments of the county or neighboring municipalities, with the exception of DuPage, which requires, and Health Department, both of whom require additional information, and then an objection by the Stormwater Department relating to the possibility of wetlands on the site. Petitioners presented before the hearing commenced five exhibits. Those are: survey is 1, a site plan is 2, an aerial as 3. Petitioner's narrative concerning the petition is 4. 5 is a report from KLOA relating to a traffic study. May I ask the petitioner and the witnesses for the petitioner to raise your hands and be sworn in?
You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give this cause and our hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lucans, you wanna go front row center and present your case, if you would, please?
So as the chairman discussed, he provided you with our exhibits. I'll walk through those a little more thoroughly in a second. But as he also said, we're proposing the rezoning from R2 to B2 General Business District with a planned development, which is listed as conditional use under the B2 zoning classification of DuPage County. It's located on a 4.725 acre parcel on 75th Street near Worley Road in unincorporated Naperville, Lyle Township. In this area, 75th Street is a major arterial roadway, 4 lanes with turning lanes, as well as a landscape barrier median. The proposed plan development will consist of 3 separate uses on the subject property. 1 would be an indoor self-storage facility, 2 would be a drive-through coffee shop, 3 would be a daycare center. Mr. Brett Paul is the with Excite. He's going to please give a short kind of history of what's going on here today, and then I'll be back and talk to you about motion 6.
Thank you. My name is Brett Paul. I am president of Excite Real Estate. We are the developer here with our partners, Hernandez Development. We have been working through this process for quite some time now. One of the things I want to highlight, Bill, our attorney, oh, sure. Is that better?
No, it doesn't seem to be on.
Testing. All right, better. I'll just start over. My name is Brett Paul. I am the president of Excite Real Estate. We have embarked on this development with our partner, Hernandez Development. As our attorney just laid out, we are developing a little over 4 acre parcel at the intersection of 75th and Worley. The uses being a self-storage facility, a coffee and a daycare. I know this has been, a self-storage facility had been presented in the past to DuPage County. I'd like to highlight some of the differences between that proposal and ours, ours being adding some additional property, and the daycare. Testing. Yeah.
For mine on yours one. I was about to do that, but it's one on. Is yours on?
Hello? Yeah,
When I turn this one on, yours one on, so
okay.
give me if I, clear my throat while you're setting.
One of the things.
Here, just take this. Your presentation is the difference between some fire estimation. I don't think it's usually important, so.
Okay, I would like to highlight, one of, our main objectives was to, engage with, the residents across the street at the Hobson Villa HOA. We had several meetings with them, and, we have worked with our aesthetics, our site plan, and believe we've come to agreement to, help improve the property and situation for the HOA. And I think Jerry, who's the president of the HOA, will be speaking, and hopefully, reiterate what I'm saying on that point. We hope the board looks favorably on our project and moves to approve it. Thank you.
Find out what that project is.
Well, we kind of have talked about it a little bit, but what you have is a three-story storage unit. Go ahead.
It's really hard to hear you, Mr. Chairman.
Are you gonna address the rezoning request?
Yes. Well, I'm gonna go through the standards of that first, yes. That's what you're asking.
Yeah.
It's now R2. We're asking you to go to B2, as you know.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, and we will go through the standards for that, but to give a quick overview, what you have is not just directly to the east of our property is a Walgreens. We have a 3-building plan development. The largest building is a self-storage facility, which is 3 stories. The middle building is just going to be drive-through coffee shop. No inside other than staff. There will not be sit-down. It'll just be a drive-through. The third is a daycare center, a 1-story daycare center. So, if I may, let me talk about what's there currently, then I'll talk about what is the actual B2 request. Currently, there are 3 modest single-family home residential buildings on the subject property, 2 of which are vacant, and 1 of which is currently occupied. In one of the 2 vacant parcels, there were squatters, caused a fire. This has been for sale for about at least since 2016, when the prior zoning development came through the city of Naperville and through here and was denied. Besides working with the HOA, the developer has worked with the city of Naperville, and the city of Naperville, as you may have seen, probably didn't, but the city of Naperville last week passed a resolution not to object. So they actually took the staff brought it whether they wanted to object, and there was a vote not to object to this development. It is next to Naperville, and it's in their planning district. So let's talk about the standards for rezoning. 1 is existing use of property within the general area of the property in question. If you look at the aerial, which is exhibit 3, the property directly to the south has passive and active recreational uses such as ball fields. Directly to the east is a Walgreens, which is commercial in Naperville. It's open from either 7 a.m. in the morning till 10 or 11 at night, depending on the day. On the east side of Worley, going further west, or east is a small modest home backing up to an SBC commercial facility. It looks like it's like their interchange for their electronics. It's really just a station, inside station. And located on the northeast corner of Worley and 75th is a church. Directly across is the Hobson Villas that you spoke about earlier, that we've been working with, which is appears from the outside, haven't been any units, appears to be very nice townhomes, higher end townhomes. But again, it is across 75th Street, which is 4 lanes and a landscape barrier median. To the west of the subject property is a commercially zoned cell tower site. Then you have a residential parcel, and then you have a commercially zoned veterinarian clinic. In essence, this whole area, this street, this area is a mishmash of different zoning. There's not a consistent zoning, and there has not really been anything built as residential in the near area. It looks like for probably decades. I don't know when Hobson Villas was built, but other than that, nothing has gone on in this area of residential size. Zoning number 2, the zoning classifications of property within the general area of the property in question. Like the uses, the zoning classifications are very diverse as well. Commercially zoned parcels immediately in the east and west of the subject property. There's also some detached and attached residential properties along with a large park and a church. So again, not just uses are diverse and dissimilar, same thing with the zoning in the area, because you have some that the commercial has been zoned, the commercial has been zoned by Naperville, and the residential is just kind of sat there for the most part. Other than obviously the townhomes. The suitability for the property in question for the use is permitted under the existing zoning classification. All this is really kind of in our narrative, and I'm trying not to repeat all of it, but R2 under the R2 zoning under the ordinance is intended for single family residences where public utilities are not readily available. Here, the subject property's location on 75th Street, the trend of development towards commercial and not single family residential, and the vacancy of the homes on the subject property shows the lack of suitability for the use of the subject property. These properties have been for sale since 2016 at least. And nothing has gone on, nothing has been able to be developed. And we're here asking for that change because of the lack of ability to really develop these as they are, as they're currently zoned. Number D is the trend of development, if any, in the general area and the property in question, including changes, if any, which may have taken place since the property in question was placed on its present zoning classification. I'm pretty sure that this property was placed in its current zoning classification. I think when we started the ordinance, probably, I think that was the 50s. I may be wrong, but it's been at least 50 years. Since that time, the area has seen multifamily and commercial uses developed. The only relatively recent development, residential, have been, again, Hobson Villas. Given those uses, the proposed use for the subject property is consistent with the current uses, diverse zoning, and the trend of development in the area, which is more commercial development along 75th Street, which, as I said, is a major arterial road. Hence, it's really not something that anyone wants to put residential on. Even the Hobson Villas backs up. Their entrance is not on 75th Street, it backs up to 75th Street. And to have a house with really an entrance on 75th Street doesn't make a lot of sense. A new house, and especially because unlike Hobson Village, you can't come in the other direction because you have the ball fields behind it. Linked to town property has been vacant and zoned, considering the context of land development in the area. I think we've kind of already talked about that. The extent of which the property values are diminished by particular zoning restrictions. This R2 single family zoning designation prohibits the subject property from being developed in its highest and best use. And is actually been prohibited from any development for the past at least 10, probably closer to 10 years. This variety of surrounding uses and its location on a major arterial, the R2 zoning classification significantly decreases the property value of the subject property. Hence, we think the zoning from R2 to B2 is highly appropriate. As far as special use, as you know, with the planned developments, and I think we've all been through this a lot lately, it is a special use in the B2 district. It is considered under the living word decision. The case law is very clear on that, as is most of the ordinances in this county, including DuPage counties, treat this as a special use. Standard number one is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of this chapter, will not be injurious to the neighborhood, detrimental public welfare, and conflict with the county's comprehensive plan. The main thing here is, is it harmonious with the neighborhood? This neighborhood, there's nothing harmonious throughout it, other than the trend of development is commercial. So, and I won't go through all that again, that I went through earlier. As will be shown, as has been shown by our traffic analysis, which is exhibit 5, and I'll talk about that for a second, which was done by KLOA, Michael Worthman. The proposed use will not cause traffic concern for this area. There are 29,000 trips per day on 75th Street from this property. This property will, as he says in his report, what you have is 70% of the users of the drive-through for the coffee shop are in essence, someone's probably got a highlighted copy, I apologize, because I think mine was highlighted and handed it out. But 70% of the users for the coffee are people who are using 75th Street anyway. That's what the ITE standards say. The storage facility, which is the biggest, largest use, generates about 10 users a day, or 20 users a day, excuse me, so 40 trips. Compare that to 29,000 trips down the road, that's insignificant, if not minuscule. Hence why and then let me also tell you the changes that you may have seen in prior site plan. It has been changed slightly since the one that was originally filed. These changes are not significant. They deal with internal site access and queuing to kind of deal with DuPage's concerns, as well as Mr. Worthman's own analysis. So those changes have been made, and that's what you have in front of you in Exhibit 2. And those are really to make sure the queuing works and that there is no problem driving, people being stuck, not being able to turn in and turn out with 75th Street and causing that concern there. The second standard for special use is it will not impair an adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property. I don't think there's any doubt that this will not impair that. The largest building is, the tallest building is the storage facility, and the only things on either side that are not being built is a Walgreens parking lot and ball fields, which have a line of trees between Walgreens, significant older trees between the property and the ball fields. Number 3, will not diminish the value of land and building in the vicinity of the proposed conditional use. Again, important to look at the neighborhood when considering this question. As we have seen, the proposed use is consistent with the property use to the east. South is open space. West, you have a cell tower. And the neighbors to the north are separated by a very busy major arterial road. 4, will not unduly increase traffic in the public streets and highways. Again, I'll go back to the Exhibit 5 by KLOA. And I already talked about that. Number 5, does not increase the potential for flood damages to adjacent property. Obviously, as we all know, in DuPage County, our stormwater ordinances are second to none, and no one's going to be able to build without complying with those stormwater ordinances. Will slow the rate of release for stormwater to comply with these regulations and the amount of the speed of release. Number 6, will not incur additional public expense for prior protection, rescue, or relief. There shall be this use should not create any additional burden for fire protection, rescue, or relief, and then all the buildings will comply with the fire codes and be built with a fire suppression system. Its current state, as I said earlier, with squatters, etc., on some of the property caused the fire, that's a heck of a lot more dangerous than what we're talking about trying to put in here. Number seven is the property will not otherwise impair the public health, safety, comfort, morals, or general welfare of the inhabitants. Given all the actions taken from a traffic standpoint, making it consistent with the uses and the safety standards, there will be no problem or impair the general welfare of the inhabitants of DuPage County. In the narrative, there's a full 3/4 of a page on living words. You've heard it from me way too many times, as well as everybody else. But if you have the rezoning, if the rezoning is approved, the conditional use falls under living word. And then we would suggest that living word, in this case, would require that it be approved. The only time is if there's some clear and convincing evidence to overcome the presumption that exists. And the proposed development here complies with all the special use standards. Against that backdrop, let me talk about a couple other things. One is wetlands, stormwaters mentions wetlands. Obviously, we would have to comply with that. We are working through that with wetlands or with stormwater. In fact, I think there was conversations with Mr. Hefner today about that issue. And we obviously will have to resolve that before we get to any building permit stage. As far as sewer and water, health department had a comment. We will be using well and a IEPA approved sewage system. Again, we're not going to get any building permits without that. We're aware of that and we'll be utilizing one of those systems that do fit on this property. So against that backdrop, we believe the project meets the standards set in the zoning ordinance for both a rezoning as well as a conditional use. And would ask that you vote to recommend this to the County Development Committee and the County Board. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I know I went through a lot real quick.
Okay, first of all, are there wetlands delineated on the site?
We have not delineated the wetlands at this point. It's been brought up to us recently that there may be, no one's delineated them, and we will have to delineate those before we proceed.
And that may change your site plan.
If it does, we'll have to come back to you.
If there's a material difference that's necessitated by the existence of wetlands, you would have to have a new public hearing.
Correct.
Because it would materially change the site plan.
Yes, sir.
Just my own view of living word is, one, it's tossed around far too frequently. Essentially, the court said a zoning authority should not substitute its rationale for some preferred use when the proposed use is enumerated as one of the conditional uses within the ordinance. It says nothing about a preference for exceptions, and the rationale of particular use being preferred by a zoning authority doesn't seem to relate to planned developments. Because planned development invites numerous alternative uses. So I don't agree.
Can I make that?
Yeah.
When you're done, I'm sorry.
Let me just finish.
I'm sorry.
I don't agree that living word is just sort of a hurdle that we would have to overcome. But frankly, that's for the county board to resolve the advice of the state's attorney. Now, if you want to address that, go ahead, but as I started, it's a gratuitous remark.
Yeah, let me just say, for the record, and it's in our memo, there is case law on this. We presented those cases several months ago to the county board. There is case law that planned developments are treated the same as any other conditional use under living. So we've cited those. As far as the exception to the FAR, and I should have dealt with this earlier, the 0.25 is a standard that has kind of gone by the wayside. I don't think we're developing any planned developments of these commercial sites with 0.25 FAR anymore. While it hasn't been done yet, it's my understanding that the county is looking at changing that. I know that's not in your purview, but I don't believe that staff believes that 0.66 is an unreasonable number for a commercial. These are not sites that were pushing a bunch of stuff into it. We haven't changed 0.25 in many years in our county. It's kind of become obsolete. So thank you for letting me respond to that.
Now, if we were to consider conditional use for daycare center, a coffee shop or a storage facility, we would have a lot of detailed information about each of those proposed uses. So let me just start with a few questions. First is the storage facility somehow separated on the site from the other uses? Is it somehow fenced off and secured?
It is not fenced off and secured. It is an indoor storage facility. And it is monitored. And like a lot of the new storage facilities, it'll have someone there from, I think, 8 to 6 in that range, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. After that, it will be accessible. I have the hours here in front of me. I can grab them. But again, the only people that can get in are with a passcode, and it is locked. And it's not something that, it's not the old open storage. But under our ordinances, the building permits, building ordinances, they definitely have to exist, and there's standards both with on-site and the ability, the lack of ability for them to go off-site. For the lighting.
Well, I think we should probably have some additional detailed information about that. Are the parking spaces designated? I think there's 21 parking spaces on the north, to the north of the storage facility. Are those for the exclusive use of the storage facility?
Yes, I mean, honestly, there's no use that would need parking other than the storage facility on the eastern half of the parcel, because you have a drive-through coffee, so no one can go inside the coffee shop. And then as far as the daycare, you'd be crossing over, and as you know, daycare is kind of a drop, no one's gonna be parking over there crossing.
Is there a fence on the perimeter of the property?
There will be a fence, yes.
You have that shown on the site plan?
It's not shown.
It's not shown, but we could obviously do it. We could make that a condition.
And you have, so we're always concerned about what's being stored within a storage facility. The only concern is hazardous materials. No, the broad definition of what constitutes hazardous materials. You have a storage facility agreement that's been.
This is a chain of
Somewhat, to a somewhat greater degree, regulate your internal circulation. Does that make sense, or is it just my musings?
So, I'm sorry, just make sure I understand.
So to the south of the detention pond, is that dry detention or wet detention?
Dry.
Well, nonetheless, it serves as a barrier from two uses to the west and the storage facility. And if it were somehow, I don't know, it just seems to me that some consideration for security ought to be given to fencing to the south of the detention pond. I'll let you resolve.
Okay.
Then I see a cell tower. You gave some testimony about a cell tower, but my understanding of the testimony was that the cell tower was on a different site. So can you show a cell tower on your site? Is that right?
Yes,
Is that existing?
that's an existing cell tower.
Doesn't that have to be? It seems to me that the two cell towers have to be enumerated in the conditional use as if they were new.
Well, this isn't a new cell tower.
Yeah, I understand, but it's a totally new use, so I don't think they're grandfathered. But like I say, they could be wrong about that. It seems to me that they ought to be enumerated and requested as part of the conditional use because, and I understand there's preference to cell towers as well. So could you look into that?
Yeah, I think staff had looked into that, but we'll double check with them.
Oh, well,
I don't think that surprises staff. that it's there.
has that been reviewed? And it's not necessary to include that in the request for conditional use, already exists?
The cell towers are considered public utilities. So they're treated like public utilities. They're not technically uses per se on the property. We don't actually regulate them on our zoning code because they're considered public utilities.
Oh, and that changed like 4 or 5 years ago?
But it's been changed for probably 15 years.
Oh, no, I lied. Okay, then I withdraw that point. Then as I to the coffee shop, just tell us the hours of operation and the staffing.
Yeah, just a second. I had that a second ago. Hours of operation for the coffee shop are 5:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. And I think the staffing is just 2 or 3 people.
Yeah, peak hours.
And nothing is served other than like traditional coffee shop stuff.
Correct.
So, I mean, does that include any kind of food?
I'm guessing there may be some, cold food, some,
But what's prepared?
I guess,
There's no kitchens other than some way to make coffee. And garbage dumps, are garbage dumpsters shown on here someplace?
here. I think it's the south end of the parking.
Oh, wait, is that on the site plan just above the,
Just to the left of lot 2.
where it says lot 2? Okay, I got it. And then with respect to the daycare center, tell us, hours of operation, months of the year, I presume to be 12. Staffing and, how many kids, what's the ages, et cetera. And then when we're done with that general stuff, we need to, the safety issue that we always inquire about is drop off and pickup and times of drop off and pickup, but just go.
Okay, and daycare hours are 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. I'll let Mr. Paul talk about a little more about the details of the daycare.
Yeah, the operator is Little Sunshine's Daycare. They have a number of locations in the Chicago area. Typically, they have about 25 employees. And I believe the capacity here is about 100 children, but I'd have to double check with the operator on that as well, and we can certainly get more information.
Is there an outdoor play area? Oh, playground.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And do you know ages?
Yeah, it's, all the way from infant to, 4 or 5 years old.
it's preschool in essence.
Okay, well, confirm all that stuff with us. in writing is fine. And then, the drop off, is the drop off and pickup restricted as shown in the front, to the north of the building?
Yes.
So that's probably the biggest issue that I've raised, because it always goes to that safety issue. Are the hours of drop off and pickup restricted in any way?
I think just the 6:30, 6:30.
Yeah, speaking as someone who has a 13-month-old daughter, typically, there's obviously the drop off in the morning or the pickup at night. You can come pick up your kids really at any time. And actually, the front lane you see there is not really a drop off. You actually have to park your car and take your kid in. You don't really park in front and then take your kid out. That's not how they do it. That's more of just passing lane there.
I see. And that's not the same with pickup, if the kid wanders out to the.
Yeah, you actually have to go park. You gotta go pick up the kid.
So both drop off and pickup, the parent or adult comes into the building?
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
How do you know that that's the case?
Because that's the regulation. They don't take their kids out, there's a liability issue,
That's whose regulation?
just the state regulation that
Really?
take care of, yeah.
We don't.
I didn't know that. I haven't had kids for a long time that are daycare center eligible. All right, I don't have any other questions. Whose township is this? Yours? Do you want to take additional questions?
I just have a few comments. I live fairly close to here, and when that area is always been a rough area, as the attorney pointed out. But I really think this could be a good project because I like what they're doing here. It's compatible to the use. And there's a 4-lane highway. My dog's vet is just over to the west of there. You gotta pull in and then pull out. Then you gotta go down. You can either go back through the neighborhood or you go all the way around the block. So, there's no increase in traffic. I will love having a coffee place. They can go in and grab it as opposed to going down the road. So I think there's plenty of the trees to, for hops and villas, which is very nice. And one of the big things was this area has been on the county plan for a while. It's called that when we went on the county board, did the estuary living center. It's really important, I think, for us members to look at the areas here. And it's not a normal area, but it needs to be developed. And I was very concerned about the spotters in there for a long time. So no other questions outside. I thank you for the presentation.
All right, let's just, does anyone have questions about the petition? Does any member of the board have a question about what's being asked? Yeah, Mr. Schultz.
No question is I'm looking here and I don't see an acceleration lane going into there and people go zipping down 75th Street. Well, when I look here, it looks like it's a shoulder that you could pull on, but it's not designated as driving. So I don't know what that means in terms of the quality of the road that's there and that sort of thing, but there seems to be a deceleration lane as you go over to the, what I'd call the east entrance where it comes down there. And is there a reason why there's not, or?
I think mostly because DuPage is not requiring it to. I mean, it's really a DuPage. If DuPage wants it, we'd have no choice, but they haven't seemed to ask for it.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else, any other member have questions? Mr. Murphy?
Yes, my question is, you said the capacity for the daycare was 100 kids.
That was the approximate. We'll confirm that for you, Mr. Murphy.
Well, in the morning there, you got a coffee shop, they're coming in, and you got another 100 cars coming in. And plus you got teachers coming in. How they get to flow their traffic through there is gonna be all bottlenecked.
Well, if you look at, we did get some comments from DuPage and we did make some adjustments to the traffic flow. To specifically address the issue of kind of making the traffic flow for specific uses.
Oh, I just talked about the internal traffic.
Right.
Yeah, and that is what KLOA modified, Mr. Murphy. Also, you have to remember that this is not a, we all go to work at different times, and at 6:30 to 9, I mean, pretty much the spread of these 100 cars. The staff will be there probably at 6:30, and then the cars will be coming in over a time period of a couple hours.
Okay, no other questions from the board. I'll go to public comment. How many people in the audience would like to make a comment about this case? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, here's the rules, adopted, the county board rules adopted by this board. You'll each get to speak once. You won't have a dialogue. You can ask questions if you like for further clarification. And the petitioner will answer them probably at the end in summary. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. And I really don't want to have a lot of repetitive comments. So if everybody says the same thing, I'm going to hurry you along. So when you begin, state your name, spell your name, tell us your address and where you are in relation to this property. In other words, if you're a next door neighbor, I want to know that. If you live 20 miles away and you just have particular concerns about storage facilities, I'd like to know that. So whoever would like to be first, please step up. Well, let's have you all sworn in at the same time. Please stand and raise your hand and be sworn in.
Raise your right hands, please. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this cause and our hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God. Yes.
Okay, anybody represent a group of people, homeowners association or any such group? Are you officially representing a homeowners association?
I am.
Then why don't you go first if you would, sir? Sure.
Thank you very much for your for our opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Jerry Brendel, Brendel. I am president of the Hobson Villas Homeowners Association. I have with me the secretary of the Homeowners Association, too, Susan Casey, Casey. Hobson Villas is located at the northwest corner of Worley and 75th Street. We're directly north of the proposed development. We are a 55 and older community, and it was built in 2005. We are composed of 21 buildings, 42 units, 2 units per building. And about 7 of those buildings back up to 75th Street, about 14, or about a third of our residents back up to 75th Street. And I think we could all agree that 75th Street 20 years ago, when it was built in 2005, is different than 75th Street is today. It's with that mindset that our community has come together to discuss the process of this proposed development across the street. We certainly have had numerous opportunities to talk among our residents concerning such things as the height of the storage facility, lighting, signage, hours of operation. Hours of operations and, of course, any additional traffic patterns. We have had the opportunity to meet with Excite several times, and we have been impressed with the direction Excite has taken in regard to seeking input from our residents and from our homeowners association. We have expressed concerns to them. They have modified their plans. And we continue to have dialogue. Our first meeting with them, they said that they wanted to be good neighbors. We feel that they have been good neighbors in that the dialogue has been very productive. We've had an opportunity as, Hobson Village Homeowners Association officials, board of directors, to talk to, the county officials, zoning officials. We've talked to our county board members of District 5, who represent us. We've talked to the city of Naperville zoning officials. And, what we have, determined is that there is a desire on the part of the county to develop this property. We feel that it is, a real issue with the county to develop this property. And the question before us is what is the most acceptable before us as homeowners of Hobson Village, most acceptable property or development that goes in there that has the least amount of negative financial impact to our subdivision. And that's what we're worried about. If this development is not accepted, there could be the next development that could house other things that would be even more negatively, that would negatively impact our homeowners association. And it is the opinion of the current development, while it's not perfect, and we have some concerns, it offers a low impact to our neighborhood, our Hobson Village Homeowners Association. It is with this that the Hobson Village Homeowners Association and the board of directors does not oppose this proposed development as presented by Excite.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next.
It's Gerald. Last name spelled Fitzgerald. I'm a resident of Rockford, Illinois, and I'm the owner of Market Meadow Shopping Center here. I represent that. I'm a partner in that development. We redeveloped the Market Meadow Shopping Center in 2020, went through an extensive zoning process with the city of Naperville, and self-storage was part of that. I'm not going to be up here and tell you that the property shouldn't be rezoned. We would be supportive of the rezoning. My question to you guys is, this is DuPage County, this is Naperville. You have one shot to develop this property. I went through the Jewel lease that was cut at South Naper Boulevard. That was done in the 70s, typewritten, and those contracts govern the property for a very, very long time. The reason why I tell you this is because in exchange for the self-storage zoning that was given to our development, we had to do a number of restrictions on the self-storage, but we also had to contribute up to $100,000 to the Hobson Oaks Homeowners Association. We had to put $15 million into rehabbing the shopping center, and we took the occupancy of that shopping center from 60 to 90%. Now, as a portfolio of managing your properties in DuPage County, Naperville, the best place to raise a family, you have choice. You don't have to choose self-storage. And I'm here to tell you, the self-storage facility that I'm aware of is at 50% occupancy. I'm not sure there's even a demand for self-storage in this market. And it's been open for some time now. So the question is not, do we want to take it R2 to B2 with excessive floor area ratio variances, but how do we want to develop the parcel if we're making the best use of our economics? Like, you're getting out of this 140,000 square feet of development, you're getting 700 square feet of retail. 700. That number should be flipped. The traffic, you've got nearly 30,000 cars passing through this. I'm sure there are more retailers that could go there that could benefit you and not make an impact that wouldn't require a 3-story building. There's also that acceleration, deceleration lanes that have been brought up, you know, you're bringing kids, you're slowing down, going in there. Kids and coffee come at the same time. That'll be up to the folks at DuPage. But the big concern for us is we don't know that there's really demand here for self-storage based on our experience. And we don't know, we don't really know what has been asked of the developer. We're a little late to the party. But for instance, we are only allowed to cover 10% of our property. All loading of the self-storage had to be done inside the building. So the car had to drive in a garage door, unload there, haul it, do everything internal. It was limited to 2 stories, not 3 stories. So all of those things were done to make it more palatable to the neighbors. There's no rental of moving trucks. You don't want to see moving trucks out here. Do you want access to exterior storage? I don't know. That's up to you guys to decide. And do you want semis coming here and loading and unloading? I think that'll be tough. They didn't allow that. They restricted our hours of operation. They restricted who could be there. They restricted the rental there. So I think you have one shot to get zoning right. This isn't consistent with the long range plan in Naperville. It was B1. They rejected it in 2016. I understand they're silent on it this last time. Disappointed I didn't get a chance to speak there, but we would speak out in opposition as someone who's invested $50 million in this community. We've had to live with the yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I had 3 minutes.
3.5 right now.
Sorry.
No, you just.
Well, I'm happy. You don't want to waste your time, but you know, the development area that we developed to that 0.25 and 0.66 is you know, really liberal. So
It's quite concerned. If you have substantial additional comments, you can send them to us.
yeah, thank you.
All right, then, one more. Would you like to be next, sir?
That works.
Okay, works for you. Microphone first.
Okay, let's go, right? Hi, my name is Bob Sudan. I'm a resident of Harvard Woods, Illinois, but I am a partner in the self-storage facility that Mr. Fitzgerald was talking about. That is our facility, which we run as a extra space facility. I run facilities all across the country and all across the world. It's a beautiful facility, by the way. You know, when I go and look for self-storage to build, I look for barriers to entry for a competition being able to come in. And so when I see something that's zone residential, that's good because it's not going to be self-storage. So we made a substantial investment in our facility. You know, in Naperville, while the city council did not write a letter in opposition, the staff did oppose this and thinking that this was inconsistent with their plan for the area. Now, the comprehensive plan for development, I believe that this is in conflict with the comprehensive plan for redevelopment, which is a standard for going to a special use. So changing the zoning, including a special use or a conditional use, I think it's written, and to have such massive FAR changes are a very large ask of you by them. And hey, I've been that guy asking. So I've been on the other side of this, and so this is a little awkward for me. But this, you know, this is not a 40,000 square foot self-storage facility. This is 40,000 square foot footprint, if I'm not mistaken, which would make it almost 122,000 square foot self-storage facility, which is much bigger than ours, which after 2 years is at about a 40% economic occupancy. This FAR that if you look at the lot 3 that they have here, it's a 1.34 FAR. That's 520% of what's allowed. And if they're going for a conditional use, all I'm saying it's a very big ask, and it's in conflict with the comprehensive plan for development. I'm not sure about this living word. I only heard about this a few days ago. So, and in full disclosure, my partner has talked to someone in your group. I wasn't involved in that, but we have talked to them about what they were doing. But anyway, that is, and there are, I believe there's exterior access doors. There's 32 doors that, that's my count, that access from the outside. Whereas ours is a fully enclosed interior self-storage. So there will be people with their doors up. And people can see that from the road and stuff. So that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Last speaker.
Good evening. Never been good at this part of life sometimes. You get a little queasy just even walking up. But Mike's good or no? Hello? Yes, sir. Name is Max Coolidge II, Coolidge for the last name. I've spoken before when it was the other storage facility. I know the neighbors that are trying or that were living there that are still a part of this deal. I said at one time, when they were against the Walgreens that lived next to them, that I would be there for them. Now they're trying to be a storage, and not that I was against it. It was just the way that the procedures have been done around here. I still believe to this day that there's been procedures that have been incorrect in parcels that are still in the Hudson Homelands subdivision unit 2 as it is. I believe the presenter, at least in my belief, may be mistaken with that the veterinary animal hospital has been zoned commercial. I don't believe that that is the case. I believe it has been used as commercial under the principal arterial zoning use. We can speak with zoning to find out if this is the case or not. Now, I don't know if they tried to go and do that usage in the last 8 years in those residences, because I'm unaware. I do know they've been sitting vacant for 8 years, that's for sure. I do know that there was a fire that just knocked out one of them a couple weeks ago. They talked about squatters. Now, squatters are squatters. We don't want them anywhere. You know, who wants to light a fire in somebody's house? But that would be, watching the property or whatever. I can't predict that. But being that I've been against the one that I live next door, let me just say, I'm sorry, I might not have given you, I think I gave the address. But this is going to be at the far end of the subdivision where I reside, which is where I've resided for my entire life. So I do believe in these gentlemen's contention that, yes, you get one shot, you're going to do it. Why not still try to go and figure out what you're doing? Because in my mind, there's been improprieties. I can discuss them, but I'm not really feeling like I need to on how that parcel that I live next door was approved in the first place. I will add, I've been waiting patiently for 3 years for certain information, and I've even brought it to the state's attorney's office, the public access counselor, and they have stalled for over 3 years on providing me this, or at least if they would provide me, I should say, because I haven't received the statement. I will determine should I get information or should I not on that part of it in the first place. Now, it doesn't sound like it's something that's out of the ordinary. Storage facilities are everywhere, they would be on arterial. Why it took Naperville to have to go out of their way into a special whole planned unit development, change their planned unit development to allow them, what's a substantial amount of work, I'm sure it was. But this has come after the ferry has been rejected in the first place. There's a lot of interesting. I certainly agree that this whole area is a mixed match. I absolutely agree. I mean, you're talking cell towers, animal hospitals, residential, you're talking this. If we keep going like when the Walgreens was approved, I get inquired, what happens next? What happens next? What happens next? Eventually it was gonna happen. I'm still here. And What happens when this one comes in, if you do three of them, and the other gentleman that lives there, he passes and somebody comes in? Then there's only gonna be one house left. So then I am no longer a subdivision? I will gonna find that gonna be interesting, because I'm pretty sure subdivision still contains two parcels, but. That being said, I can't give you a complete positive, I couldn't give anybody a complete negative, because I'm still stuck. In trying to figure out what's going on in the first place. Thank you very much for your time.
Just looking in before we make a statement. Ask for a new site plan. Comments from. Speakers indicates. Gonna need some details. So, when you present your new site plan, could you show a lot more detail, any signage, the light posts that might be in the area, any landscaping that's required on the site, and then the dimension and height of these buildings? And then, next, you have some boards behind you, which were not referred to in the presentation and don't appear to be exhibits that were presented in the course of the presentation. So what? Are you withdrawing them, or, I mean, we don't care about renderings. What are they?
Well, I'll hand this back when I'm done, Dan. The four next to me are all exhibits except for this thing called site. It's just an internal, it's a zoomed in of this. So that's really kind of irrelevant. The stuff over in the
Are
back,
you introducing it as an exhibit?
No.
Because- Okay, fine. Thank you.
and the stuff in the back, that's just in case residents had an issue and wanted to see what it looked like. So we have not introduced any of those either, because those are, as you've pointed out a number of times in my career, not really relevant. So,
We have known each other for a while.
let me kind of at least respond to a couple of things here, and we'll provide further information. I'm not sure it'll be an updated site plan or different documents, but we will provide those to you. Because oftentimes the lighting plan will just stay separate. There's this property, and if you want a condition, we're not gonna rent moving trucks, as was concerned by the other gentleman. There is no exterior storage. There is an exterior access on the south and the east side, the south being backing up to the ball fields, but will not be seen by the street or by anybody because of its location, and the exterior access to specific units on the east just backs up to a parking lot where the Walgreens is. So that's what's occurring there. The vet hospital is zone commercial in Naperville. I looked it up on the GIS website, just so you know, the one I talked about. So we will present further, we'll send you something, get something here within the next week to everybody. We'll put it in the portal within the next week. And otherwise, we would just ask that you, again, finish with your recommendation that you can recommend this to the county board. Thank you.
You have the wetland issue to resolve, and to be cautious, isn't it prudent to set another public hearing for several weeks? We can't consider this at our August recommendation meeting, which puts us into September. I don't want to set it for recommendation, no further public hearing, and then find out that you have to republish. So isn't it prudent to set another public hearing to resolve the wetland issue? And if the issue requires no change, then the public hearing would last about 5 minutes, because it would exclusively be for the purpose of resolving the wetland issue.
I guess, try and speak loudly because I know I'm gonna bite. Okay, sorry. I mean, the feeling is on that issue is if there is no wetland concern, we're going to have there's no need for it. Okay, if there is a wetland concern, I think we're gonna may have to change the site plan so much that we're gonna have to republish anyway. I'll leave that to Mr. Haas, but yeah, because what's published is what is the site plan and everybody's aware of the site plan. I'll let Paul talk about it, but it's beyond me.
The site plan is not published. If you needed some additional variation or whatever, then yeah, you'd have to republish, but just as they say, an abundance of caution, why don't we just set a public hearing to assume that this can be resolved in the simplest way possible?
I can't hear you.
Like, put it on for August first.
What's it take?
And republish, they do it.
I'm not gonna put it on for August first. Okay, well, it's not gonna be on for August first.
Is that true?
Yeah. What do you want to do? You want to set something in mid-August for,
I mean, if we're not going on until September, it might as well reset it.
well, your development isn't going to go until next spring. So I would set this for our September recommendation meeting, which is either 5 or 12, which is at 5, September 5. We could set here's my suggestion, and it's up to you. We could set this for an August 12th, Tuesday night, follow-up public hearing. If that's not necessary, because there's nothing else to be resolved, wetlands is not an issue, no further variations are required. Then we'll simply move it to September 5. If it is necessary, we'll hold a brief public hearing August 12th. Is that? I'm sorry, August 13th. So what's your preference?
Well, if we're gonna have a September recommendation meeting anyway, we might as well schedule it.
Exactly. Okay, so I'm gonna continue the public hearing till Tuesday, August 13 at 6 o'clock. And we'll resolve only the wetland issues. And if there are changes in the site plan that do not require an additional republication of this case, then we'll consider the matter September 5 at our recommendation meeting. That will be held at 5:30 in room 3500B. Thank you very much. Any concluding remarks?
No, I think.
That's it. We'll close the hearing. So, there's no old business, no new business to be considered, so we'll adjourn.